Well, you're talking about censoring. Does it bother you that the president, Donald Trump, when a reporter stands up and asks a legitimate question, you know, he pounces on them? Do you like that? Is that how you're going to run your campaign?
Well, I wouldn't do it that way. I think, but when you're talking about a press conference, look, here's what I think about Donald Trump. Whatever else can be said about Donald Trump, no president, to my mind, I've been around since 1959, has ever been more accessible to the press. The guy gets up there 2 or 3 hours a day and runs his mouth. He goes out and when he got rid of having a formal press secretary, it was because he wanted to do his own press conferences. So you don't have that extra layer between Trump and the press that you used to have. So Donald Trump, in many ways, has really been the model. I would conduct myself in a very similar way. I would go out and talk to the press every day, and I would be criticized like Donald Trump is for the manner in which I decided to answer questions or not answer questions. But at the end of the day, there is no buffer between Trump and the press. So we're getting to see actually what the president thinks, how the president behaves, and then we, the people, get to make a decision come voting time whether or not we want to have 4 more years of that. That's how the system works.
So, reporters standing up in the White House briefing room with Mark Whitney, if I ask a question you don't like, are you going to berate me and put me in my place?
I might say, that's a red herring. I talk about ending war on drugs, and you jump right to heroin. You're trying to marginalize me. You're trying to make me sound like a crazy person. I say the 14th Amendment doesn't confer jurisdiction over the fetus, and you're saying I hate babies. So we would have those. We would engage in rhetoric back and forth. I think Trump benefit. I think what Trump does is he goes to, when he doesn't have a good answer, he goes to being a bully. So he really is an empty vessel in many ways. He is the wrong person to be president. But compared to all the people he's been running against, the Democrats and Republicans, over the last 4 years and this year, he is head and tails above them in terms of his ability to conduct himself on his feet in front of an audience, standing alone on stage with no net, no place to hide. He's far better than any of them, and I would be that much better than him.
Well, and it's so interesting. The reporters just don't know what to do, and then, they get that sound bite, and then they run it that night, and okay, everyone sees it, and by the next day, there's 3 new things to talk about. You can't even remember what the president talked about a week ago, or what was being scrutinized by this administration. You got to give it to the guy in the sense of he just keeps throwing crap out there, and they don't know what to do.
Well, he also takes advantage of the world that that our corporate press has created. And I would say the same thing about the Democrats who ran this year. They have created a universe in which we have this thing called hate speech, and the citizenry is divided up into so many different subsets of identities that nobody can talk. So what the press and the Democratic candidates for president have in common is, at a macro level, they are always engaged in a public speaking competition with the incumbent president. But they live in a world where you can't express an opinion because you might offend a bunch of people. They're scared of Twitter.
Yeah.
They're scared of social media. They're scared of Facebook. And, they're scared of the simulation. Twitter and Facebook are not a thing. These are marketplaces, and the algorithms are optimized. If I go on Twitter and I talk shit about Taylor Swift, that algorithm is optimized to go find the person who loves Taylor Swift more than anything else and find the person who hates Taylor Swift more than anything else, because those are the 2 people who are most likely to comment and retweet or attack me. That's how they make money. It's a simulation. It's not real. And if you're in public life, you have to ignore all that crap and just put it aside.
Well, as a candidate, wouldn't you just tell the Democrats to just stop apologizing? Stop. Just say what's on your mind and say it.
Yeah.
Don't you think they would do better that way?
Absolutely. I would tell them, look, this is a very corporate operation the Democrats and Republicans run. With the exception of Sanders, everybody else that ran for president as a Democrat, they belong in the back office running HR. There are no presidents there. And when they do say something on the merits, they say it wrong. I watched Kamala Harris who was the top law enforcement officer in California. She was Attorney General here before she was a U.S. Senator. And she was attacking Elizabeth Warren because Elizabeth Warren wouldn't join her in calling for Twitter to remove Donald Trump from Twitter, to remove the President of the United States from Twitter. She was literally calling on Twitter to censor, to engage in censorship. Now, I think the Democrats have made a mistake in not embracing the Bill of Rights. I think that would really benefit them. I'm happy as a libertarian that is unclaimed territory. I perform my shows in big cities for Democrats and Republicans. My favorite city to perform is Washington, D.C. And because I have all the email addresses on all the lawyers in the country from my software company, when I go to D.C., I email the lawyers primarily at the Department of Justice. That's where most of them are. There's 40,000 of them down there. I say, hey, there's going to be a guy in town doing a show called Fool for a Client about how he beat your ass and got himself out of prison. You might want to come see that. So the prosecutors, about half of my audience in D.C. is prosecutors and their spouses. And by the end of the 90 minutes, I tell them my libertarian life story. I remind them of principles they forgot they believe. I remind them that they believe in free speech, that they believe in separation of church from state, that they believe in an absolute free press, that they believe we have the right to choose who we associate with and don't associate with. We have the right to protest our government, and that they are authoritarians and they're engaged in overkill. And it brings some of them to tears.